Welcome everybody back to another episode of LlamaIndex webinar series. Today we're super excited to feature RealChar by Shaun and Piaoyang. Build personalized AI characters and all using open source technologies. And so we're super excited. They have a presentation and they'll go through some demos as well of this amazing project that's exploded in popularity in the past month or so. It's sitting at around like 4.6 thousand stars right now, and so it's just gotten very, very popular in a very short amount of time. And so super excited to dive into this, talk a little bit about the tech stack, and then also open it up to Q&A, talk about some challenges and future directions. Without further ado, passing it to Shaun.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, LlamaIndex. Thank Jerry for the invitation. And yeah, let's get started. So my name is Shaun, and Shaun, I'm the CEO and co-founder of RealChar. And the topic today is how do you build your personalized AI characters with RealChar, and along with my co-founder Piaoyang. So first,
everyone.
Yep. First, here is a quick rundown of all things we will be discussing, and we will try to stick to the timeline, give enough time in the end for Q&A. So meanwhile, if you have any questions, drop in the chat. We will go over them like one by one. First, if you have not heard about RealChar and also post in the chat, let me know, and we will give you. Then it will help us to change our content, depth of our content. First, RealChar is your real-time AI characters. It's a fully open source project on GitHub. It's a one-stop shop to help you to create, customize, and talk to AI characters and AI companions. It's powered by the state-of-the-art large language model tech stack. We launched this project 3 weeks ago, and as Jerry said, we already get 4.6 thousand GitHub stars. Also, we're building a community. We already have 700 Discord community members joining our Discord. So again, I'm Shaun. I'm the co-founder and CEO of RealChar. And Piang, why don't you introduce yourself?
First thing, yeah, so I'm playing the CTO role of RealChar right now, building together with Shaun. Yeah, we both previously worked at Google and have some experience in self-driving cars too.
Okay, next. So so I'm going to show a very boring demo. So first is how do you talk to Elon Musk? Make sure. Can you guys hear the audio?
You might have to do screen sharing with the audio toggle enabled.
Okay, I actually did. So let me try again.
Is it just me? Okay.
Wait, let me try again. Well, let me some technical issue. Okay. Can you hear me now? Is it now?
No.
Okay.
Can maybe try
one more time.
Yeah, just try stopping the share and then resharing with audio.
Okay. Yeah, some technical issue.
It's all good.
Okay. So once I share the audio, looks like it stops playing. Let me try again. Okay, one more time. If it doesn't work, and we have to. Does it work? No audio.
No. maybe you can just give a narration though. You can pretend to be the.
Yes. Yeah, just pretend you can hear Elon Musk. And what we're showing here is allow you to have a very natural conversation with Elon Musk. At the same time, it has a really good personality. And also give it a try in RealChar. You should be able to get the same result. And yeah, so the first demo we want to show you is how do you have a natural conversation with any of the public figures, and at the same time ask them for their opinions on the news and on any of the subjects. The second is it also allows you to interact with your AI characters, which means like you can just like when you talk to a human and you think you've got enough information, just ask them to stop and have a really natural conversation. So the second, well, this is also, if you pretend you can hear the voice, it's just a podcast style. And, Steve Jobs talking to Elon Musk about subjects. And I just pretty much can listen to them all day. and really fun when they talk to each other. Okay, next, so let me continue. So next, I'm going to hand over to Piaoyang, go through all the technical details with RealChar.
Actually, before that, this might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I'm actually very curious. What was like the motivation or spark for this project?
Oh, yes. So when we build this project, we believe everyone should have the equal access to the state-of-the-art large language model technology. And we don't think, to put all the technology behind the paywall is the solution for this genre. So we believe, so that's why we open source all the code base from like the front end, from the client side to the whole technical stack. So by doing this, we can build a community. Like I also put in a later slide, we can build a AI character, AI companion community. So everyone will be able to contribute and own your own AI characters instead of owned by other companies. Yeah, so that's like the initial motivation for me to build this technology.
God, it makes a lot of sense. Were you looking at other providers in the space like Character.ai or Inflection, and that sparked the interest in a project like this?
Yes, I want to have full control of my character, right? I also want the character to be trained on my data, and I have control of the data. So that's why we start this. And another thing is like, we believe the conversation should be more natural, just like human talk to human, right? Right now, a lot of conversations are turn-based, right? You send a text, wait for a response. We feel that's like, you learn how AI talks, right? We should let AI learn how we talk. So that's the right way. So that's why we build this like real-timeness into the RealChar.
Interesting. Cool.
Hey,
Cool.
Piaoyang.
Yeah, thanks, Sean, and thanks, Jerry, for the invitation. So let's go a little bit deep into the technical side. First, the overview of our project is actually pretty simple. We make it really fast to set up, and also we only relies on the minimum number of external dependencies. So everyone should be able to set it up in a few minutes. And we also choose to have like a modular design. So every major component in our system can be replaced by a new version or just a different option. And as also Sean mentioned, we build like a real time into our product very early on because we want to make the conversations very interactive and engaging. And the last point is we try to embrace open source projects as much as possible because we ourselves are open source project and we wanted to use these like popular options in the community. And we also are proud to advocate for like more open source adoptions in the AI space. Yeah, so moving on to the data preparation side, this is like on the top side of this overall system architecture. The point of data preparation is to give memories and contexts to our AI characters. As you know, most of the language models training data have a cutoff date for OpenAI is like September 2021, which is almost 2 years ago. Yeah, and so it doesn't really know too much about the recent news. But in Sean's previous demo, we actually asked Elon Musk about his view of the proposed cage fight with Mark Zuckerberg. That's definitely something the language model doesn't know. So we have to tell the AI character this is actually something happening right now. And also, in many cases, you may be interested in data that's actually have low importance in the training data or simply doesn't exist. For example, maybe it's your own character, the training data these companies collected won't have the information you want to have. So you could like just put all these things that you want the AI character to know in the data preparation step. And moving on, let's talk about like how we actually use LlamaIndex in our project. So this is kind of like the backbone of what we call character catalog, basically owning the data, the piece that manages the data for each character. So as of now, we choose a very quite simple like approach. Basically, we preload the offline data into our system for each character. But we are thinking like next time we will do like a more real-time loading and also load the customized data For example, like each user could choose different data sources to be loaded. And we also plan to utilize more of the indexes in LlamaIndex for like a better argumentation. One thing nice about using LlamaIndex is we can easily support multiple file formats. For now, you can use like just plain text, PDF, HTML, EPUB, like an ebook, things like that. So people can easily put the relevant data into the system as the like a context data for the character. So we believe this is actually pretty easy to use, and also like we benefit a lot from the existing features in LlamaIndex. And next up, we also talk about like how we use the embedding and the vector store. So because we serve multiple characters in our system, this is not a single context, but actually multiple contexts. So we also keep some like a metadata for each character to make sure that when we do retrieval, we're only retrieving for the relevant character. For now, we default to use chroma as our like a vector store, but you can also easily use other vector stores in the system. And there's also a part about the prompts, because to make the AI character like engaging, you also need to teach the character how you should be speaking and how you should actually have its own like a personality. So that's where we actually put some like a prompt engineering techniques to like fine tune the character. And this is actually where we believe how each character can talk and interact with you differently. For example, for Elon, he is actually very, he has a very noticeable character if you talk to him. So I think this is like a credit to the like a prompt engineering work here. And this is definitely some kind of manual work to do. So we have identified that you can actually use ChatGPT to help you write these kind of prompts. For example, you can give the prompt we have for Elon, and then you can say like, let's change it to maybe Dr. Oppenheimer, and he will be able to help you. We also have a community contributed script for you to automate like collecting data and writing the prompts for a new character. So if you are interested, feel free to like check out. And next up, we are talking about an interesting piece, which is the voice cloning. So we didn't have a chance to hear the audio in the previous demo from Shaun, due to like technical issues. But what's interesting is actually the voice is very much like the actual character's voice. We do this currently by using 11 Labs. They have a pretty neat feature called the instant voice cloning. So you only need a 1 minute long audio clip of the character speaking, and then you can actually train a model which can like mimic its voice. And there are also other solutions available. I believe there are also some like open source solutions where you can clone a voice. And in the future, we wanted to also make it like automated, and probably even by just recording by the user directly in our UI, so that user can like automatically get benefit of this feature. Cool. So now it's enough for the data preparation side. Let's talk about serving side. And this is also many quite interesting things happen. We want to actually make our system super fast, like a super reactive. So that's why we put a lot of effort in making sure every piece of in the flow is like a streaming and real time as much as possible. So the three major components here is speech to text and the orchestration, which includes like all the language model processing, vector store, and other auxiliary processes. And also then back to the like text to speech to the user. So let's dive into the speech to text first. So for making it fast, we use client-side speech recognition by default. For example, like a Chrome and WebKit-based browsers have client-side speech recognition already, which works reasonably well. For like a mobile device, today they also have client-side speech recognition built-in. So we leverage these, but their quality is not always good. So sometimes they may produce like uncertain result. The confidence score may be low. And in these cases, we'll immediately fall back to our backend speech recognition. We use Whisper by default. And also we have switched to faster Whisper, which is an implementation that's make a Whisper quite faster for inference. It's also possible to run on API services. For example, the OpenAI Whisper API, and also Google has like its own voice transcribing service. So if your machine cannot really run a powerful enough speech recognition model, you could also just use the API services. And we on the right side, you see this is our like a kind of modular design. It's easy to add new services for speech to text as long as you follow the interface. So next up, we also talk about like a text to speech. This is unfortunately usually the like slowest step in this process because it actually takes time to construct the audio data. Again, we make it really like a swappable. You could easily add a new speech engine or like make tweaks to existing one. Right now we have 11 labs, Google TTS, and also fellow startup called like Unreal Speech, which also produce pretty good speeches. We also in this part we also do it like a really like a streaming. Unfortunately, like some of the vendors doesn't really have native streaming support, maybe until recently, but we actually have sort of like implemented streaming by ourselves, basically by detecting the like a minimum structures within the text. Maybe this is a phrase or sub-sentence that we believe it can be it can be used to generate a complete speech. Then we will immediately send this like a piece to the text to speech so that we can actually get back the speech data faster. So that's why we can actually generate these speeches in like a pretty real-time manner.
Does this sound okay? Like when you send it in bits as opposed to the entire chunk?
Yeah, so that's the point. So you cannot really send the word by word because that will produce pretty bad like speech output because human naturally like your pronunciation, things like that actually needs to depend on some kind of phrase in the context. But as long as you are taking out a piece of text that's actually self-contained, it can still like produce pretty good audio output. So that's how we actually managed to partially streaming it. Cool. Yeah, so I see that the question like a streaming feature just this week, we actually take a look. It's actually done similarly by what we do, by just like breaking down the text into smaller pieces and then generating audio from these like smaller pieces. So it's interesting that we actually implement this kind of thing before their official support. Yeah, and also one thing to mention here is both the speech to text and the text to speech have like multiple languages support. I think we have 8 languages right now. They're pretty much blocked by the text to speech part because this is where the language multi-language support is weaker. But I think these 8 languages are still pretty like useful for all the users out there. Now, moving on to the orchestration part. So this is actually where the language model is working and some of the heavy lifting is happening. So before we actually like let the language model generate any response, we do a bunch of preparations. For one, like, we will retrieve from vector store for any relevant context. That's how you actually can ask the character some like a recent news, and it will how it will be able to respond to that latest news. We also do some prompt structure so to make sure that these contexts and the previous information are given to the language model properly. And we also optionally have have the ability to use extra tools. For example, we can do Google search right now. We also have integration with Quiver recently added, so that these kind of tools, external tools, can add more like a context to the language model. And so the next step is we let the language model streams back to both the text output to the user and also immediately to the like a TTS task, as we just mentioned, in a streaming fashion. And also we will save the output in the conversation history and also materialize to a database for like a future references. And in this place, what I want to highlight is the language model part is also pretty much modular design. So you could easily switch from OpenAI's model to Anthropic's model. And we also recently added support for the Llama 2 model from Meta. It's actually also pretty easy to add new language models. And we are also working with some other open source libraries, which enables you to easily run language models within RealChar.
So maybe a question about, like you said, optionally use extra tools, like you said, search and Quiver. Are you kind of implementing this as like an agent abstraction, or how does that work?
So it's not in the like a formal agent structure at this point, because actually it's actually pretty easy to implement. We also wanted to make it really fast. So using agent structure, usually sometimes it's actually slow to run through all these like steps. But yeah, I think we will be adding more complexity into this part. So we probably will look more like an agent going forward.
Cool, makes sense. I know I'm just jumping in here, but you mentioned like conversation history, and I'm kind of curious, like how do you maintain like conversation history per session, and how do you think about like sessions over time? Are you able to like reload a conversation history and just pick up where you started? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, this is a good question. So right now, the conversation history starts when with each like a chat session. We don't yet have the like a feature to like preload the previous conversation history, but we believe this is actually our plan. We are going to implement it very soon. With that, of course, there will be a problem that if your like a conversation becomes really long. So that's where I think we will add some like a processing, maybe to summarize the previous conversation history, or to summarize the key like memories you had with this AI character, so that the conversation history is still like manageable.
Yeah, what's really interesting to me from like a UX perspective is that once you extend this and start building relationships with these like AI characters, and you start having these like longer term conversations and you know, just like build up that memory structure, it'd be very interesting to see how that evolves as conversation comes in, and how you actually are able to not just store the raw conversations, but extract out like the main memory modules, and how you represent that. Is it like in a vector store? Is it in a knowledge graph? Those types of things over time.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of things to be actually play around here. You could put something in the literal like a conversation history. You could also put it just somewhere for the language model to know like your character, so he knows how to interact with you better. Yeah, so as you said, there's actually a bunch of interesting things we can do. Cool. So let's move on to the summary. So overall, we believe there are two principles we are taking to make the RealChar really good. One is the design for like real-time conversations, including all the like streaming pieces, and also like how we utilize the retrieval augmented generation scheme for better conversations. And I think this is where we draw a lot of inspirations from LlamaIndex and others in this field to make it really work. I think if you think about probably 6 months ago, We already have ChatGPT, but people are probably not so familiar with all these REG techniques. But today we have done like a ton of research and practice into this space, and we know how to generate these conversations with all these like external information to make the conversation better. So this is why we think the conversation is really fun and entertaining in RealChar.
Great. Yeah, that's a great presentation. Maybe just taking a pause right here and taking some questions from the audience. So Tal asks, could you please share details on the costs of running a web app like the one that you showed in the demo? I imagine this is relevant for anyone trying to kind of spin up like a hosted service using LLMs.
Yes. So to break down all the cost, right? So if you look at the overall architecture, so there's several costs coming from this, like the choice of technology. So there's like the voice clone and the text speech. We're currently using 11 Labs. Actually, that is taking the majority of the cost right now, and that's why we are actively switching to other text speech service like Unreal Speech. So we just added them like 2 days ago, and Google Text to Speech. And we are also like thinking about, we also have a small group of people researching on the Park. So then we will have a hosted version, self-hosted version. So there's no additional cost for the text to speech and voice clone. And then the second part is, the second part is calling a large model, right? So if you use GPT, so GPT 3.5 is relatively cheap. So 4 is definitely a little bit more expensive. But we also give you a solution for Llama 2, right? So we just added Llama 2. So if you want to host yourself, it actually works. The same prompt, the same setup, just switch that to a Llama 2. I test actually, so in the code base right now, we use the 70 billion Llama V2, but I also tried the 7 billion and 13 billion. Both works. So if you really worry about the large language model cost, you can definitely switch to a local version. Then the last one is the hosting cost, right? If you use a deployment, we currently host on GCP, and if you don't, but we also offer a Docker solution, right? So that pretty much like you can host on your local computer and expose a endpoint, right? Then that's free. So, but our goal is to make everything self-hosted. So have a open source alternative. Then in the end of the day, it's just your electric bill, and that's it.
There's actually sorry, go on.
I just want to quickly add, like GPT 3.5 is already pretty good in our use case because we make our prompt really easy to follow for the model. So even if you're just using GPT 3.5, it also works pretty well. Just a consideration for the cost.
Yeah, sweet. This actually brings me to a follow-up UX question, which I was kind of thinking about when you were talking about like the speech to text and text to speech. Do you have like telemetry showing like for a lot of users, are they really just interested in like text-based interactions, or they're interested in kind of like the end-to-end like speech-based interactions?
Pam, I think we have a number, right?
Oh, sorry. Like, what is the question? Maybe I don't fully follow the question. Is
it just like, are people interested in interacting with RealChar mostly through like text-based, like they just type in stuff via chat, or you have the speech to text as well as text to speech? Like, are they interacting with RealChar through like voice, basically?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. I think they are probably equal number right now, because text is really easy to use and start with. Yeah, but once people are more familiar with the system, I think a lot of people actually use the voice part. Yeah, so we have seen like both are probably very popular.
Cool, makes sense. Next question from the audience. Could you please talk a little bit more about how you're using Fast Whisper for streaming audio? Were there any challenges that you faced in this?
Yeah, so the Whisper doesn't natively support like a streaming. So what we do is also similar. Like we just detect when you actually have a pause. and then we will pick up this audio clip and send to Fast Whisper for inference. So I think so far it's actually been pretty good. The quality is pretty good, definitely better than the client side speech recognition. It's definitely a little bit slower than the client side speech recognition. So we are working on to actually make it even faster.
The next question is actually related to something I was kind of curious about. So you mentioned a system prompt for a character, like for Elon Musk, there's a system prompt for Elon. Yeah, when a question is asked to any given character, do you have the same prompts used every time as the base system prompt? And are you thinking about kind of keeping that, evolving that, even doing some sort of retrieval augmentation or tuning on that prompt over time? And maybe we could start there.
Yeah, I can take the question. So each character have their own system prompt right now. So, but right now, all the system prompt are hard-coded. So, which means when you load the character, it's predefined. But we are working on dynamically changing the system prompts. So I visual that as it's managing the state of the character, right? So you have two systems. One is manage of the state of the character, and one manage the state of the human, right? When you have the conversation. So those will be changing dynamically during the conversation. And that's how I envision this. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So would you do something like retrieval augmentation over time, basically filling in the relevant context and system prompt as well?
Yes, exactly.
Sweet, interesting. I think the next question asks about I guess the broader question is multilingual support. So support for languages like Chinese, other languages. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have good Chinese a text-to-speech solution right now. At least with these existing providers. There are probably also some other languages that people want to use. Yeah, so if you find a good a TTS engine, feel free to let us know. But we will also exploring on this space. Yeah, the language support is usually just blocked by the TTS part.
Yes, we have a pretty high bar on the TTS. So that's why it's really hard to find a service that's really satisfying and really fun to listen.
Great. I have a general question, and this is something that would be good to get your thoughts on. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in trying to build this thing using open source technologies, and how are you thinking about the biggest kind of items in your mind that you want to prioritize for future work?
So Jerry, also we still have some contents. Should we save some of the questions in the end?
Oh,
or
I did not realize that. Yeah, please go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Let's keep all the questions in the end. We still have a few slides to share.
Got it.
So
my bad.
Yeah. Next. So there are some fancier demos. Yeah. So first is we are you are the first group to see, and we are secretly working on some Vision Pro version for the RealChar. And probably next year when everyone's starting to get Vision Pro, you will be able to talk to any of your favorite characters and in your living room. So sorry, you still cannot hear the audio, but I promise you it's there, and it's really awesome to hear Bruce Wayne talking to you. Okay, yeah, so this is one of the demos, and oops. All right, so the next demo, so this one is a very short demo. So we're starting from today, you will be able to create a character without touching any code. So we provide the system prompts, ask you to choose the voice, and that's it. 10 seconds, right? If you want to clone your own Elon Musk, 10 seconds, you will be able to do that. So I think I'll answer some of the questions in the channel. We are going to make this more customizable, but this is the very short version. And like I said, you guys are the first group to see this. Next, and we are working with some very interesting technologies. So if you know, so this is when you're working with Elon Musk and try to ask him to hire you in the Mars mission. And sorry for the language. I want to show you like this is like when you actually talking to using some of the technologies, you are Elon Musk will decide like he wants to continue the conversation or not. So yeah, so this is part of the stage like I mentioned. How do you manage like for the character? And so then the last one is we also work with Avatar to have some technology to show you some animations for the avatar. Okay, right. So then the last one, I'm not sure how many people have seen this, and we also working with Multion to bring the AI agent to RealChar, so you can actually send Twitter and to book flights and do a lot of things for you, and you will be able to stay in the same chat window and continue have your conversation, but at the same time get the work done. Okay, those are some of fancier demos, and let me continue. Yeah, so that's like RealChar, right? So RealChar is your real-time AI character is powered by the whole community. So we are embracing a lot of technologies like developed by the community, both open source and closed source. So from the avatar interactions, that's called AvaTech, and I have a table. So if you want to later on take a look, so you can do that. And for the character states, we work with a company called Open Source, and they have an open source version called Social AGI. And for the backend, we are replacing, like I said, we are replacing large language models with self-hosted ones. We're working with Bento ML, working on replacing those. And for audios, we are also working with Unreal Speech to give you a more realistic speech. For the larger model and data, you know, all the big names like LlamaIndex and langchain and the chroma, right? So we work with them closely to make sure the larger model technologies, like when we build a RAG, are like state of the art. We also working with one of the open source projects called Quiver. You will be able to store your data to Quiver and pull all the information from Quiver. The last one is we working with multiple AI agents, right? Right now is Multion to help you to get work done. We are also adding more AI agents in the platform. Stay tuned. Yeah, so here is a table of all the solutions as mentioned. What are the solutions are open source and what are solutions are closed source. And you know, later on probably we'll be able to share the slides with everyone, so you can just like take a look at all the cool things they're building. So in short terms, we're building the open source AI community, and for AI character community, so everyone will be able to own your characters and be able to deploy privately and with no external service dependency. And we're also working on long-term memory, right? We're using RAG and working with LlamaIndex to working on make sure we have the best like RAG system here. In the longer term, we want to build the largest open source AI character and AI companion community. So then everyone will be able to collaborate and share your thoughts and how to make your character and companion more real, like human, right? And at the same time, we want to make sure the technology we are building are accessible to everyone. The last is we want to make sure the conversation is really real time and can be everywhere, like even your Vision Pro, and it's fully customized and learned from your own data. Okay, so that's it. So those are 2 barcodes, and you know, like this AR barcode, and scan those and join the Discord or check out our latest repo. And now we're ready for questions.
Sweet, that was a fantastic set of demos. Thanks for sharing. Maybe going back to the questions from the audience, I think Dominic says, I found your iPhone app to work really well compared to running it locally on the MacBook, and potentially has to do with like integrated speech to text. What are your thoughts in general about like the form factor, like mobile versus like laptop versus, I guess, like a VR headset?
Yeah, so I think for native apps and the web, for web, like there's like the different web browsers like Edge, Firefox, like there's Arc, right? So everyone have their slightly own different implementation. But for iOS apps, if you're using like mobile apps, it's pretty standard, right? So we have found like to compatibilities hasn't been an issue for us. So that's why we are switching more to the backend solutions instead of doing like speech recognition in the front end. So also like once we have the faster Whisper working better, so I think we should have even better support for the web users.
Yeah, but also for like a fun factor, it's actually interesting that many people are using like the mobile app to interact. I think the engagement on mobile device is also pretty high. So this is actually also aligned with our vision that we want RealChar to be running on every device possible you would like to use. So this is yeah, our roadmap to like add more like platforms. For example, Android is work in progress. So that's something that we definitely looking to bring it to more platforms.
Awesome. For the next question, Logan asks, maybe this is just on the iOS app. When I tried it, I realized that the bot is very eager to answer. So if you pause a little, it jumps in and doesn't wait for the user to finish. How do you actually think about that? How do you think about like waiting for the user or kind of like adjusting that gap to make sure that a complete sentence is uttered before like giving a response?
Yes, I think that's a good question. So then there is like a cost effective, right? So like if you want to do more detections, that means like you have to know, okay, if the user has complete sentence or not. I have, if you read the code, I have a secret experiment working on called utterance, right? So trying to make sure it's trying to detect if the user already finished a sentence in the backend, right? Trying to predict if actually a finished sentence. So I think in the long run, we will make sure probably make it more systematic, automatic. But right now, most of the implementation are just wait probably 1 or 2 seconds. So in the front end, so if it's not detecting any speech, so it was starting to talk trying to predict, okay, you already finished your content.
Sweet. I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but like, do you think about how to minimize like hallucinations given any sort of context that you retrieve?
Yeah, I think this is the part about the RAG and state management, like for the character, right? I think, at least from my personal experience, the hallucination usually comes when you pull the wrong context, right? When you pull the wrong information. So if you find the really relevant information, it can actually pretty much stay in character. So I think for us, the most important thing for us is how do we make sure when we like store those data in our systems, if it's in the like knowledge graph or it's in the vector database, when we pull the information, the relevancy increases. And at the same time, we monitor those contents actually pulled for the question. So this is the more even harder question and long-term question we have to answer continuously when we build the system and adding more data into the system. So then the second part for the hallucination is how do you actually solve the prompts, right? So like when you look at the question, if you look at some of the question we sent to a large model, a lot of hallucination happens is like if you are human, you cannot answer the question, right? How do you expect your large model to answer the question correctly? Yeah.
One interesting thing I've personally noticed when kind of doing retrieval augmentation is that when the language model actually knows about the person or the character, then sometimes you have to like force it to try to actually use the context from your knowledge base as opposed to trying to like use its own internal knowledge. And so how do you actually balance between the stuff that already kind of knows about Elon Musk versus like, you know, stuff that's actually up in your upstate knowledge base is something that's interesting. It might require like prompting, it might require like explicitly telling the LLM to forget stuff. But that's like especially since a lot of the characters that you have are like public characters that probably knows about a priori.
Yeah, so we also have private characters, so like community characters, like there's cat, there's dolphin, there's a few other characters that we create like with no prior knowledge of those characters. I mean, for us right now, we find is like you have to have more data for those characters, right? So like for the public figures, they already exist in the larger model, like during the training data cut off, right? But for the neural character, if you want to like create any character, like but then you have to provide more data and in the data folder. So that's the part like when we retrieve, you'll be able to reference to those. So we have thought about those, like, but we haven't experienced like major issues because those are characters, right? Sometimes like, okay, it's okay. They be more a little bit creative.
Got it. This is a nice segue into the next question, and maybe we'll take like 2 to 3 more before we close out. Steve says, I've tried using GPT to embed a character from the very beginning with a very basic prompt. And so basically the entire character is actually created with GPT. How are you thinking about like letting users like kind of build these like very custom characters versus, automatically via like human specification? Like how would that like loop into your product experience?
Yes, I think for, what we are building the new character creation experience, I think we want to exactly that, right? So like we want, when you build the characters, you get help from the GPT and GPT-4. So we were starting from that, right? And so right now we provide a very like standard prompts. So you can just copy paste that. If you want to copy a public figure, just replace name, then everything works. But in the future, if you want to do more like your new character clone, how we imagine is you just provide a lot of data in a data folder, upload those data. We also help you to sort out how do we abstract personalities, how do we abstract sentence prompts from this. And so like Piaoyang mentioned, there's also a community script help you to get all the data you need and to sort out that particular personality. I imagine this will be more automated, and everyone, once you have the initial setup, then the more you're using it, give it more data, it will be more like that character you want. That's just how I envision this.
Gotcha. And then maybe the last question is, how can these characters or agents help you do work, like send emails, make calls, update records, and actually more broadly, and this is something I've been kind of thinking about, like I feel like the human perception of like agents that can help you do stuff versus like a personalized character that you can talk to are two slightly distinct use cases. And I'm curious like how you think about that. Like, would you see people do more of one or the other, or a combination of both? And what's your vision there?
Yes. So how I envision like AI character or AI companion or AI agent is a spectrum, right? Like there's people who extremely care about productivities. There's people who only cares about like emotional, like have someone to talk. So it's a spectrum. So we try to balance what are the tools we bring to that spectrum, right? From the very interesting AI characters, you can just have fun talking to them, have a game with them, to like sending emails. So that's why we partner like with multiple companies on this spectrum, right? So for the AI agents, we work with few like leaders in the space, try to help you to like send emails. So for example, if you ask Elon Musk things, and you want to help him to like in his tone to send the email, you can do that, right? So but there's like I said, there's a spectrum. So people may line differently on the spectrum, but we also want to like RealChar be offering the tools to help you to build this the whole experience.
Awesome. Well, this is super exciting stuff. Thanks, Shaun, Piaoyang, for your time. Thanks for the super exciting webinar and the really cool demos, especially the Apple Vision Pro demo and all the other ones. And so, yeah, thank you again. And I think the audience really enjoyed this talk. And we'll have the recording up on YouTube for anyone who missed the live recording. So thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.